Good evening, Danvers, and welcome to the Select Board meeting of February 7th, 2023, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have approval of the minutes of January 17?
So moved.
Second.
And I just make a note on our agenda. It says 2022, obviously it's 2023. Okay, it's like writing a check. Do you get the right year? There's a motion, there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. At this time, if anybody's here with new public business that's not on the agenda, now's the time to speak. Mr. Bradstreet, please go to the front. You'll be next, sir. Bill, you're up.
If I could, I had a couple of things to ask about. In the square, it's a lonely site without the evergreen tree that was a centerpiece. I know I've been told before that it has to be put in a certain date, and taken out a certain date. If it would be possible to have it put in earlier and taken out later, it does look kind of nice next to the flagpole. The flagpole looks kind of barren without the tree beside it. The other thing was, and I've asked before, is it possible to work on arranging the different important meetings on different nights or different times so that they can all be attended? And I know that
I looked at the schedule, back in October, and there was some conflicts. Planning board, because of a client or applicant not being able to make the regular meeting, they changed the meeting. And there was a conflict with the school committee. On a Thursday, I think there was River Committee, Recreation Committee, and some third committee, all related. But given that we really only have, also there was October, was Columbus Day was a holiday. That moved things around. I think there was another holiday, I can't remember offhand, but because of only 4 days in a week, and in a short month, there will be overlaps, but it's not intentional. It happens. But we're very conscious of that and are looking, try not to duplicate. It will happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're working on it.
We
Thank you.
worked on it.
Thank you. One other thing was the new website that the town manager alluded to at a prior meeting. Would it be possible for instructions or information sheet to be put in, say, the electric bill, so that everyone is aware of how the site operates, so it's not difficult? I'm not a computer person. My wife does my searching for me. Even she had a problem working through it. So an information sheet of some sort, again, in the electric bill that everybody receives, they can read it or ignore it at their choice, but at least put it out there for them.
Perhaps
Thank you.
something from that.
The assistant town manager is sitting in the front row. She managed the project, and she was answering your questions as you were asking them. There is information coming. It will not be an electric bill stuffer, but we will schedule a one-on-one at Town Hall, Bill, if you want, and we'll give you a personal tutorial. But there will be information coming.
I'll bring my wife if that's what's going to happen.
That sounds perfect. Okay?
And the last item, and it's been mentioned before, is the town making any progress on reviewing the exit interviews so that we can find out why some of the valued employees are choosing to leave the town? I think it's important. I think some of the people in town will want to know why, after seeing a face for such a length of time, not retirements now, but someone decides that it's time to move on, so to speak, why? Just, I'm asking.
Bill, they do exit interviews, and it goes into a personal file. It's their private, privileged information. It's confidential.
Okay.
And but if I could say, I mean, we've been doing exit interviews for the 8 years I've been here. We also are seeing, 40% of the American workforce has turned over in the last 2 years. Lexington is having a hard time filling positions. Danvers is having a hard time filling positions. You turn on the news, it's difficult to find employees. It's difficult to keep employees. The labor market has been incredibly competitive and tight, really coming since the pandemic sort of ended. So we are trying everything we can think of on the recruitment front as well as the retention front. But it's not unique to Danversville, and it's not unique to the North Shore. It's an issue. It's a challenge.
Okay, as opposed to an exit, maybe an entry one, why someone would choose to work in Danvers because of we offer this, that, or what have you.
We try to offer competitive pay, competitive benefits, and when good employees have opportunities, we try to keep them. But everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's competing for the same talent.
It's just something that I ask because perhaps there are other people who would like to know or see that someone's asking. Thank you, you're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Sir?
Good evening. My name is Bob Panderson, and I've lived on Grandview Road for 46 years. And this might be a bit premature because I know the Transportation Advisory Committee is working on this, and I know it's a top priority. I know, Mr. Bennett, you're on that committee.
Yes.
And I can't thank you enough for taking initiative in this issue. But it's out of hand, it's out of control. We have at least 30 Essex Tech students parking in our neighborhood. And what it has caused is there's two streets off of Route 62. Prentice Street comes down off 62, and Grandview Road is a T with a cul-de-sac. It's a dead end. So we have 35 homes, 50, 55 cars daily trying to get onto Route 62. These students are parking on Prentice Road on both sides of the street, 20 cars. A two-way street is now one lane. So you try to get in or out with a dump truck coming down, an oil truck, a school bus, or another car. You can't. You've got to pull into a driveway or back up. Now, the problem is very simple. These students don't want to pay $1 a day to park at the Aggie. They want to park in our neighborhood. We're right across the street, right in front of the main office, the main building, right across the street. They want to be close and they want to be free. Now, I know it's a public way, but they're not parking correctly. We've had to have the police officers come out and ticket people to correct their parking. So I know you're aware of it, but we would like something done prematurely, if we can, temporarily, to solve this issue. The cars race up and down the street, and for one solid month, both lanes were facing out to 62. Now this lane should be facing this way. They're all facing out so they can get out at 2:30 and beat each other and beat the school buses. Okay?
So this Friday morning, we have a Zoom call scheduled with the superintendent, Aaron Henry, myself, Representative Kearns, and some other folks.
I'm going to be on it, and so
Good.
is John.
Good.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah.
We are working, DTAC is working to have a resident-only parking
Yes.
sticker program. They have to come before this board
Right.
for approval.
Right.
They are working on that.
And the residents support that.
And as I understand, I've got a
Yes.
couple of recent emails just this week, and so we're glad the residents support that.
Yep.
It's unfortunate this happened back before the merger. The neighbors were assured that the administration would take care of those issues. And
Correct.
they're unable to, unwilling. I'm not too sure what the right answer is, but we're aware of it. We are working on it, as Mr. Bradstreet would
Right.
say, and look forward to seeing you Friday morning on Zoom.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could just add, I think, as you mentioned, the residents are amenable to a resident-only parking. There is some concern about that. We have our high school principal in the room tonight. You pointed out that the Essex Tech charges parking. We don't. We've had an issue in the past where students at Danvers High have parked on side streets, and that has required the administration to work to rein that back in by enforcing the student handbook, et cetera. It may be that the resident parking sticker is a viable solution. That brings cost. Police have to patrol that. have to coordinate towing if it's a repeated infraction. So there are costs that the town would have to bear to do that, and we want to be mindful of that in this conversation with Essex Tech about managing their students and managing where they're parking their cars.
Well, I guarantee you, if you tow cars for 5 days, problem solved,
Probably.
okay? And my concern also is with the school. I think their goodwill stinks. They're a terrible neighbor. We've called the officials, the superintendent and the principal, in one ear and out the other. They don't want to help us at all. They're making our problem your problem. They won't help.
Thank you for coming before us tonight.
Thanks for hearing me.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else with new public business? All right, thank you. The board will meet and vote to appoint the students chosen to represent the Student Activities Committee. And Mr. Federico, you're going to take charge, or is Jen going to take the lead? Together, okay.
Good evening, Jen Breaker, Assistant Town Manager.
Adam Federico, Danvers High School Principal.
During the month of January, I worked with Adam to solicit applications from students at the high school to serve on the Student Town Advisory Committee. We received 17 applications from the students. In late January, the review committee, who's made up of myself, Mr. Federico, Nick Campion, our Assistant Rec Director, and Jasmine Ramon, our Director of Equity and Inclusion, we met to review the applications, and we are pleased to recommend a number of students for you to appoint to the committee. You've been provided with the names of the students and a brief explanation as to why they're interested. We'd like to make 2 notes. In grade 11, Atwale has withdrawn her application, so we will not be appointing her. So when we come back later to request appointment for our 10th grader, we will also be looking for an additional 11th grader to be appointed. The students are here tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Perhaps you can just introduce them so we can see what they look like. And
Absolutely. We're really proud to have our students, enter into a partnership with the town of Danvers. I think one thing at the high school that we're really trying to emphasize is student leadership and student voice, and really having our young kids understand how town government works, and there's really no better way than actively participating in it. So I think it's a great opportunity, and we really appreciate your support. So for our student representatives tonight from grade 9, we have Nora Nickerson and JJ Murphy.
can they
Both
stand and be seen at home? Thank you.
From grade 10, we have Julia Boyd. Julia is right here. There she is. Grade 11, we have Milana Moy. Unfortunately, she was sick. She let me know she was not going to be able to make it. And then in grade 12, we have 2 seniors, Isaiah Young and Danielle Ford, if they could stand up. And then our at-large representative is Mila Shuriken, and she's here as well, right there. So again, we're really excited that this group applied and accepted to be a part of this, and we look forward to working with them in the coming days and weeks and year.
Very good. Thank you for volunteering. We look forward to your progress in this project. And Dave, any comments?
No, it's what a wonderful, wonderful thing. Reminds me of when I was young. The other thing I wanted to say is, while the principal is here, from time to time I get down to the high school in the evening, and if anybody wonders whether our money is well spent at the Danvers High School, it seems as though there are programs going there every night for people to take part, not just students, but older people too. So I say congratulations and thank you for doing a great job and making Danvers look like a wonderful town to come and live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, any comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's my understanding this is an outgrowth from the Student Citizens Academy. Is that kind of where this
That's correct.
thought came from? And can you just briefly describe what the role is of the student representatives? Do they attend meetings? They report to the board? Or can you just kind of give us a high-level description of what the position entails?
Sure. So they will hold their own meetings, public open meeting law followed, meetings. Our hope is that departments and different boards and committees throughout town will look to them for recommendations on projects and different initiatives. For example, if we were looking backwards, perhaps the select board would have asked for their recommendation on the pop-up park or disc golf. We've heard from the planning department that they're really excited to bring some projects that are before their department to the committee, and we look at getting them involved in other departments. We also are going to take them on a deep dive of the budget process. Rodney is very excited about that. So we hope they'll be able to help us engage with students more and the younger population, and then also help us be mindful of all residents as we're navigating projects and decisions the town is making.
Sounds great. Student input or input from young people is very valuable and something that I think we're lacking currently. So looking forward to hearing their recommendations and their thoughts, and it's a great introduction for them to be involved as they graduate from school and become, members of, the workforce and residents of Danvers, hopefully. So thank you for the effort to both of you.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen?
I think it's wonderful. Thank you for volunteering. You are the leaders of the future. It's nice to have a bridge between what's happening in school to our board here. Thank you for what you do. Looking forward to hearing the feedback.
Thank you. Gardner?
Yes, I thank you as well. You live in a different world than I lived in when I grew up and went to school. So you have a different perspective, a different view. Social media is completely different. I remember when I went to school, you had mimeograph paper. So I can still remember the smell, and most of you can if you're old enough. But you live in a different world, and it's evolving and changing, and there are things that you see that we just don't see at our age. Your parents don't necessarily see it. We don't see it, so it'll be great to have your perspective and your ideas and your thoughts on the future as opposed to our thoughts looking back on when we were there. So I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to appoint the students identified to the Student Town Advisory Committee appointment until August 31, 2023.
I move we accept the appointments as presented with the one person being struck.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Congratulations. Well done. You're welcome to stay to watch how government works if you want, or you can leave.
They're going to go home and do their homework,
Yes.
so.
Thank you. The board will hear from the police chief regarding results of a recently conducted compliance check. Chief Lovell. In a moment.
Good evening. On Tuesday, December 20th, 2022, from the hours of 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., the Danvers Police Department conducted alcohol compliance checks within the town of Danvers. There are currently 50 liquor licenses holders in town. Of the 50, officers were able to check on 45 businesses. Breakaway, Salmon Joe's, Friendly Toast, Danversport were all closed. And the Polish Club is a private club, which we always have a difficult doing a kind of surprise compliance check because you need to be a member to enter the premises. There were 2 teams broken up into 2 teams with one 18-year-old female and one 19-year-old male who were used as decoys for the compliance checks. All procedures recommended by the ABCC were followed, including prior public notice. November 22nd, 2022, we sent out a social media post advising the public that we would, in fact, be doing compliance checks in the weeks to come. At approximately 4:25 p.m., the underage female entered the Torritos restaurant located at 10 Newbury Street and sat at the bar. She was approached by a male, later identified, and requested a Bud Light, as instructed. The male asked her if she wanted a bottle or a draft. She replied, a bottle. He provided the underage female an open bottle of Bud Light without asking for an identification. The open bottle was placed in front of her, and as instructed, she left the establishment and went out to the offices waiting outside. Two officers entered the premises and observed the open Bud Light bottle at the bar where the female was seated and asked for the manager. They were advised the manager was not on duty. They identified themselves as Danvers police officers, and according to the report, were met with less than cooperative employees. They identified the bartender who was on site and responded she had nothing to do with it as she was smoking a cigarette outside. They were told that the manager was out getting items for the restaurant, and it was another employee who served the bottle of beer. She later admitted that she was as close as to a manager at that time, and after much resistance and lack of cooperation, the pies were identified and informed of the violation. This was one and only violation during our compliance checks.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief from any member of the board? Gardner?
So I just want to thank you for the compliance checks. I know it's gotten a bad rap in the past. You heard me say many times, it's not a sting. This is a compliance check. The town takes very seriously the liquor licenses, and we appreciate the police going out and affirming that they're being used in the way we intended to. I'm actually heartened to think that all but one, the one that we will talk about in a minute, we'll talk about, but it's good to hear that they're all taking it seriously, and especially so close to getting their licenses on January 1st. It should have been fresh in their mind. Anyhow, you said you posted on on social media. Do we no longer publish in the paper?
We've had a hard time over the years getting stuff published in the papers with the
Okay.
circulation being down so much, so usually social media is what we use.
I mean, I think the publicity, the announcement, should not be necessary. You should be able to go out and do a compliance check whenever you need to do one. I think it's an added opportunity for people to be reminded of the fact that you're going to do it. So, but other than that, those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Anyone else with any questions?
Very good.
Matt?
Yep, so kudos to the police department for performing these checks. They are very important. They catch this type of activity where the checking of IDs and verifying the age of the patrons is important for not just that establishment from a liability perspective, but for the community. And so I think in this, my interpretation of this report seems to suggest that this was maybe a regular kind of behavior at this establishment. So it's troubling that there was pushback to the officers. Typically, the board usually sees when they're confronted with this underage serving, there's usually apologies or there's an acceptance of the violation, that they understand that they made a mistake. But in this case, it's very troubling to me personally that they pushed back and that they kind of became confrontational with the officers. So I'm interested in hearing from the management of that establishment exactly what's going on there. And it also seems, from my understanding, that there should be a manager of record on site at all times. There's a primary manager on the liquor license, and then there's kind of associate managers, but one of those people needs to be on site at all times when the business is open. So, yeah, this is kind of an outlier, I think. So we need to bring these people in and kind of get a better understanding of what's going on there, because this wasn't an anomaly. I think what you've uncovered is kind of business as usual. That's my belief. So I'm looking forward to having them visit us. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. David?
Dan, is there a representative of the?
No, not yet. We're hearing the report from the chief.
Okay.
And we're going to ask questions. Everybody wants to make their comments now, which would be more appropriate when they're before us.
Okay,
So in a moment, we'll have a motion.
that'd be fine, thank you.
Thank you. Maureen, questions?
No, I have no questions.
Thank you. So, just so the public is aware that in any of the material given out by the clerk to these establishments, it's noted that compliance checks are done and not on a scheduled basis, and to expect them. It's good that we post it somewheres so that somebody doesn't come back and say, well, we had no notification. So at least there's some notification, and that's just an added layer of protection for the town and for the police. So what is the will of the board? We want to have these folks before us. When and
Mr. Chairman, I move we, pursuant to Mass General laws, we ask the, this restaurant to come in to answer to the charges here in consideration of review, suspend, or any other action against their liquor license.
do you want them here at our next meeting?
If convenient.
Wait a minute, Chief.
So, Chief?
If possible, I request possibly the March 7th meeting. I'm on
March 7th.
vacation.
Thank you.
Next meeting is school vacation week. I'll be away for the week for
That's
school
fine.
vacation, so.
Yep, nope,
For March 7th, then, please.
that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
At
Hearing
the
none?
end, I
Yes,
just, maybe stated in terms of, for them to appear and show cause why the license should not be suspended or other action of the board.
thank you. That's added to the motion.
And, so I'll wait for the vote.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion is done. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, thank you.
And could we ask the clerk to provide the list of who is listed as the manager and the alternates as well for that evening?
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
See you on the 7th. Have a good vacation.
Before the chief leaves, Dan, may I say
Yes.
something? The chief, on behalf of himself and the department and the town, issued a statement subsequent to those, the stuff down in Tennessee, and I thought it was beautifully written, and I was very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws on the application of 9 Bridge Enterprises, Inc., DBA New Bridge Variety and Deli, 9 Bridge Street, Leah, Peanut Toss, manager owner for a transfer of an off-premise wine and malt license at that location, license to include a pledge of license to Gloucester Bank, and the clerk will describe what it means by off-premise.
Off-premises liquor to be sold, it's a store, retail store. So they do beer and wine.
I still don't understand. They're selling it at the variety store.
Correct.
To be consumed off the premise? Is that
Off-premise, yes.
Consumed? Okay, thank you. Welcome, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Leah Pianadosi, 9 Bridge Street, Danvers, Mass. New Bridge Variety and Deli.
Okay. And do you own the building now?
No,
business?
I'm in the process of purchasing the building. My attorney unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. She was in a bad accident last week, so I'm here
sorry
by
to hear
myself. I'm in the process of purchasing the property along with the business and the liquor license, the beer and wine license with the store. So this is a transfer of the beer and wine license from the current ownership to my,
Do you have a signed purchase and sales?
yes.
Yes, okay. And
It should be in the application. There's,
It's in the packet.
it's in
okay,
the
everything's in
application.
order?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
And obviously, the Gloucester Bank is going to be the lender.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us? Nope.
Anything you want to know?
Well, we'll see what they want to know. Gardner?
So my standard questions, I don't see it here. How many hours a week do you plan on being on the premise?
Right now that I'm there, I'm in the process of, we're trying to change over management from the current owners to us. So I'm there every day.
You as the license holder will be there every day?
Yeah. just-
And we're assuming you'll name an alternate in the event you're out of the store.
Yeah, I'll probably have at least one shift manager to begin with. If I'm not there, that will be there. And then in the event, we'll have, as business grows, hopefully maybe have another. But I have an alternate manager listing sheet to attach
Okay.
to that for you guys. So under me,
And the alternate's also tip certified?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Because as you heard, one of the things we require is that when liquor sales goes on,
Yep.
there's always someone whose name is on the license or an alternate on premise.
Yep.
If I may interrupt
Yep.
to your question. Your application says you'll be there 40 hours.
I didn't see.
Yeah,
And
I
how
would
many
like to.
hours- How many hours is the store open?
We're currently open 7 to 7 right now. But we're in the, again, I haven't fully purchased because we're waiting for the transfer and everything. So we're in the process of changing from their current ownership to us. So I am there every day and I have an employee that works with me. but we'll be moving her into a manager, but we haven't bought the building yet. We need to
Well,
close
the
on that.
transaction is completed, I think you should check with the clerk to let her know
Yep,
your hours, that you'll be there,
yep,
as well as who else will be there when you're not.
absolutely, yes, yes, sir.
God, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right, I didn't see that number in here.
Good, that's all good. Go ahead.
The other issue, and not for you, is our liquor license guidelines, which I'm sure you actually saw, you had a copy of them.
Yep,
Doesn't look for businesses to pledge the liquor license, and I'm not sure, we should take that up later, Mr. Chairman, because basically these liquor licenses no longer have intrinsic value as they had in the past. But, to
Kathy,
the
you
clerk?
want to make a clerk
On the
comment?
retail store licenses, I believe sometimes there is a value to those because we don't have extra.
Okay, all right.
yeah,
But-
from my understanding, I could be wrong, this is it is one of the only movable licenses left in the town.
Okay,
So it does actually have.
okay, but we should review this is not for you.
Okay.
The liquor license guidelines, the language to that effect, because we actually say we do not
Right.
allow
duly
it to
noted.
happen.
But obviously, Gloucester Bank thinks there's a value
Yep.
to it.
Okay, those are my only questions, thank you.
Maureen?
Welcome and congratulations. And
Thank you.
I remember this place was known for very good subs.
Yes.
Sandwiches.
Yeah,
So hopefully that will continue.
yes, we are going to
And,
continue them.
Yep. Good luck and welcome to Danvers.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, just a question about the ownership. So the ownership today also owns the service center across the street, the gas station? Is that
Yes,
accurate?
he owns the gas station, but it's leased out. Somebody leases it.
Oh, okay.
He owns the property there.
So this transaction that, for you, is separating those two properties, correct, right? You won't be affiliated with the gas station?
No, no, no. I'm just purchasing 9 Bridge Street, which is the
Okay.
convenience store, and 3 residential rental units above the
That's
property.
great. Well, you get quite a bit of traffic, so hopefully you'll do well, continue to do well, so.
Thank you.
good.
Yeah, it seems like a great area, and the
Yeah.
neighbors have all been very welcoming and always come over to introduce themselves, and I'm excited to be a part of it, especially with, Danvers Port Yacht Club right down the street. So really hoping to turn over the store, and it seems like the neighborhood is asking for it. They want like a little store that they can
Yeah.
go to for what they need. There's not like a ton in that area, especially with the bridge closed and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to be a part of the community here and kind of get my feet wet with you guys.
Well, it sounds great. I wish you success.
Thank you.
David?
Thank you, Dan. Leah, in addition, I'm embarrassed. I've gone by there for 65 years, and I've never stopped in. Now, tell me about this deli thing now. What kind of deli food are you serving there?
So from my understanding, New Bridge Deli has been open for, I don't know, way back in the day. They said it was a candy store is what people keep telling me. There's people who have lived there for like 25 years, like in the neighborhood. But they said like in the 60s and 70s it was a candy store. And then at one point somebody turned it into a convenience store and a deli. So we're known for like the steak tip subs, meatball subs, and then we do like Italians, whatever you like, vegetarian. But it's just cold subs, meatballs, steak tips, chicken salad.
Well,
tunas.
thanks a lot. I'll be sure to stop in and say
Yeah,
hello.
we'd love to have you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public? None?
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the application as presented.
Second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good luck, Leah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Public hearing will be held on the application of Elbitson Roast Beef, Inc., doing DBA Supreme Roast Beef, 18 Maple Street. Area, Georgia. I know I messed that up, but you're gonna get a chance to correct me. Owner for a transfer of common vicular license at that location. Welcome. Please introduce yourself, so,
Good evening. My name is Ariana Jorga,
thank you.
and we are taking over the ownership of Supreme Roast Beef here in Danvers. Like I said, because we are 2 families, partnership, and then in a long time experience here in U.S. with food industry, we decided now when we hear about the Supreme, we said it's a beautiful location. We love Danvers. My daughter, she studied here in Bishop Fenwick. I'm sorry, I have a little bit.
No, you're doing fine.
So, and we thought, why not give a try? Because we love Danvers and roast beef, and my husband and me, we work a long time in a pizza place, so here we are.
So what type of changes will you make, if any, or none at all?
Oh, we are not gonna do any type of changes. Everything stays like it was before. Nothing changed.
Not going to raise the prices?
We didn't.
You're allowed to. No, good. Welcome to Danvers.
Thank you so
Questions?
much.
David?
No, nothing. Thank you. Good luck.
Matt?
Thank you so much.
Just wish you success.
Oh, thank you. We need that.
Gardner?
Good luck.
Oh, thank you so much.
Maureen?
What are your hours of operation going to be? Have you decided, like, what the time?
Oh.
Because I know on Friday night sometimes they were closing early. I remember growing up as a
No,
kid.
because now winter time, we decided, not us, because we are new, but the previous, they decided to close at 9 because
Yeah.
it's very slowly, but we are gonna change it,
Yes, it'd be nice to stay open a little later.
10, 11.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I promise you, because
It just seems like now, because with COVID setting in, it seems like a lot of businesses are shut down.
I know.
You have to, right, if there's no business,
Yeah.
for cost effectiveness, you need to close earlier, but.
Of course, yeah.
I think you do well because there's not many businesses that are staying open except for maybe,
Correct.
iPazi or something like that.
No, we are thought
Okay.
about it, but
Rocco's.
they changed the previous owner, and we didn't move it.
Well,
So,
good
but
luck.
we are gonna,
Welcome
thank
to
you so
Danvers.
much.
This is a public hearing. Any questions from the audience? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You too. The public hearing will be held on the application of Falfel Mom LLC DBA Falfel Mom, 100 Independence Way, which is the Liberty Tree Food Court, Jabbar Hassim, owner for a common viculars license at that location. Is someone here to speak to this? Well, there you go. That's not,
Mr.
that's
Chairman, I move we
unusual.
table this application.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, thank you. They didn't get the message?
I reached out to them and sent them an email and tried to call them today.
Okay,
I'll reach back to them.
all right, very good, thank you. A public hearing will be held on the application of Starbucks Corp., DBA Starbucks Coffee, 139 Endicott Street. Daniel Brennan, manager for common viculars license at that location, and please introduce yourself at the podium.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Daniel Brennan. I handle permits and licenses for Starbucks. We have our store that's been under construction for a bit. We actually just got in there at the beginning of January to do our interior build-out. It's just over 2,600 square feet, 38 seats inside, outdoor patio with 24 seats. I'm requesting to open up at 5 a.m. and close at 11 p.m. Likely we'll close earlier than that, but if the board allows it, we'd like the option if we want to change our hours a bit. Hoping to open end of March, first week in April. Questions?
No, that pretty much covers it, I think. Maureen, questions?
No questions.
David?
Thank you, Dan. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
Is this up by Market Basket?
I haven't been there personally. 139 Endicott.
I don't know where 139, is there going to be a drive-through?
It's a brand-new building. Yes, it's a drive-through. There's actually a site plan in the packet.
Yeah, and I
It's
saw that.
one of the newer ones where it's the double drive-through lane.
If it was approved?
Well, it certainly is. I've got friends that are going to be thrilled that the store is coming because they like the product. So it looks very, very thoughtful and wonderful, so good luck.
Thank you.
Matt?
Sure, yeah, I have a couple of questions on the outdoor patio.
Sure.
Will there be music outside, like speakers or any kind of?
No, there shouldn't be any outdoor music.
Okay, it's not really a
Matt, if I
big-
may interrupt, just to clarify for everybody, 139 Endicott, it's the former Endicott Liquors and yeah,
Well, there
next
was
to
a bank.
Savers,
There was a bank there.
the bank isn't behind it.
No, the
Oh,
bank was destroyed, torn down.
Okay.
Across from Market Basket,
Yeah,
the
across
street.
from Market
Oh, yeah.
Basket, yeah.
Same plaza.
Same plaza.
So no music. Not that it matters because there's no one
It's
close
all
by.
highway behind them.
And then I'm just curious about how you're going to draw customers, because you're kind of off the beaten track at that location. So how will you generate, how will you let people know that you're there?
Good question. I'm not really sure on that.
Well, there was a Dunkin' Donuts back there at one point, and they went
They
out-
weren't
they
making
went
it?
out of business. So when a Dunkin' Donuts goes out of business, you know there's something wrong. So I'm just suggesting that you may want to do some
Sure.
outreach and,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
you know, like free mochas for people. Stuff.
Free Mocha
Coupons.
Danvers Day.
That's what I mean. Coupons,
I gotcha.
discounted coupons. All right, that's all I have. I wish you success.
Thank you.
Gardner?
Well, seeing as we're here about the common viculars license, I'm presuming your corporation has done its due diligence. So on all the other stuff, I have no problem with the common viculars license.
Thank you.
Maureen, did I give you a chance yet?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're all set up here. Now, this is a public hearing. Any questions from the public? Hearing none.
Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Second, yeah.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. What's the will of the board?
I move we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think there's another one coming to Danvers soon too, actually.
Another Starbucks?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can't have enough coffee shops or nail shops.
Matt,
sir.
Starbucks people will find the Starbucks. They're all crazy, you know, spend those prices.
All right.
Maybe
Oh, my
they'll
goodness,
use,
we're at
GPS in
the
their cars.
main event. The board will hear a report on the annual comprehensive financial report from the town's independent auditor. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zach Ventros from Melanson. The Markham, or maybe already Markham, is at the microphone. Zach is part of the team that has worked very closely with our finance team to conduct our annual audit for many years. The spoiler alert is that we have a clean audit again this year, which I guess makes for it's the desired outcome. It may not be the exciting outcome, but it's what we're looking for each year is a clean audit from the auditor. And you should have received copies of the audit with your packets. Amended, the first run that we gave out a month ago had a formatting issue in the back, so you should have received a clean copy. And I would turn it over to Zach to walk us through the highlights from this report. We're also joined by Rodney Conley, our finance director, and behind him is Heather Varney, our town accountant.
Welcome.
And with that, I would turn it over to Zach.
Thanks, Steve. Again, I apologize for the formatting error. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I'm glad that we got that fixed. Thank you to whomever brought that to our attention. Before I jump in, Steve made a comment that we are no longer Melanson, that we are now Markham. Melanson was acquired by Markham CPAs, which is a national firm. It's one of the 15 largest CPA firms in the country. Largely, there's not going to be much change or really no change to the town of Danvers. The only thing that's going to change is on our independent auditor's report, instead of saying Melanson at the top, it's going to now say Markham moving forward. This will be one of the last reports that we issue under the Melanson title for the town of Danvers. We have a couple more, an end-of-year report and a single audit report, which will be under the Melanson title, but every other report will be under the Markham title moving forward. And the entire Melanson team came over to Markham with one big fell swoop. Nobody left. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's retiring. So the same folks who have been working on your audit as Melanson are going to be the same folks that are working on your audits as Markham. Before I jump into the financial statements and start getting into the numbers, I think it's important to have a takeaway from my presentation here tonight. And Steve alluded to this, that the presentation is that the town is in a good financial position. There was no management letter. The town has a good unassigned fund balance. They have a well-funded, or you have a funded an OPEB trust fund. With that, I'd like to get right into the meats and potato of the financials. And if I could, I'd like you to have to turn to page 15. And page 15 is the first page of the independent auditor's report. And as Steve alluded to, the town did receive a clean opinion. That's the best opinion you can receive from an independent auditor. And that's the same opinion that the town of Danvers has received in prior years. Next, I'd like you to turn to page 19, which is the first page of the management's discussion and analysis. And the management's discussion and analysis takes place on pages 19 through 28. Essentially, this is a narrative summary of the results of operation. So simply, instead of sitting here and reading this to you, I'd actually like to jump right to page 30, which is the first page of the statement and deposition. And we'll talk about the same things on page 30 and some of the further in the future pages that are talked about here in the management's discussion and analysis. So on page 30, this is one of the first of two balance sheets that we're going to be looking at tonight. And this balance sheet takes a long-term financial view for the town of Danvers. So as you can see, there are three columns. You have your governmental activities, which is your general fund, stabilization fund, capital project fund, special revenue funds, are all consolidated together, and then the town's long-term assets and the town's long-term liabilities are included. Then that next column is your business type activities, which makes up your water, your sewer, and your electric funds. And the breakdown of what makes up water versus sewer versus electric can be found on pages 39 through 41. I don't want to go there now, but I just wanted to bring that one to your attention. If you're looking for a breakdown between water, sewer, and electric, that can be found on pages 39 through 41. And then that final column is just a total, it's just a summation between your governmental activities and your business type activities. The first item I want to bring to your attention is close to the bottom. I'm going to focus on the governmental activities column here tonight. And the first one I want to bring to your attention is non-depreciable capital assets. And that had a balance of $74,381,000. It's actually about a $6.5 million increase from the prior year. Now, that increase is due to the expenditures the town made on the Smith School. That project wasn't complete, so it's sitting in your non-depreciable capital assets. When that project is completed, those expenditures and those assets will just move down one line item to your other capital assets net of accumulated depreciation. So the next item I want to bring to your attention is your other capital assets net of accumulated depreciation. And that has a balance of $103 million. It's actually about a $4.6 million decrease from the prior year. Now that decrease is due to your current year capital additions coming in less than your current year depreciation expense. So your current year capital additions was about 1.5 million, but your current year depreciation expense is about 6 million, which is why you see that decrease of about 4.6 million. And some of the major capital additions this year, the town spent 385,000 for some new computer hardware, 125,000 for new radio equipment, and 155,000 for new police vehicles. If I could have you turn the page to page 31. Page 31 is just a continuation of this balance sheet. So the first page you saw the assets. Page 31 is going to show the liabilities and then the fund equity. So maybe about 2/3 of the way down the page, you're going to see non-current liabilities. And the very first one there is bonds and loans net of current portion. And that balance is $69,142,000. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this one to your attention is users of the financial statements like to see between 70 to 75% of your debt paid off within 10 years. And as of June 30, 2022, the town of Danvers is at 59% for your governmental activities. It's not a bad position to be in, but it's not exactly where your users of the financial statements like to see it. And that's primarily due to the new high school being bonded at 25 years as opposed to 20 years. So that's really the reason you see that swing down from where the users of the financial statements like to see. But for your business type activities, that ratio is at 84% will be paid off within 10 years, which is a good financial position for the town of Danvers to be in, which will be viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements. Two line items below that, you have your net pension liability, and that's as a balance of $71,331,000. It's actually about a $4.5 million decrease from the prior year. And what this represents is the town's proportional share of the total unfunded liability for the Danvers contributory retirement system. So the reason for this decrease, it was primarily due to investment results coming in greater than what was anticipated by about 12.6 million. So you had established investment results at a figure that came in greater than what you had anticipated by about 12.6 million. So that decreased the liability by about 12.6 million. but that decrease was softened by a change in assumptions. And that change in assumption was your discount rate. Your discount rate was decreased from 7.5% to 7.125%. And that decrease increased your liability by about 8.6 million. So you had a decrease in the liability due to your investment results, and then that was brought back up. It was softened and brought back up due to a change in investments, which ultimately led to a decrease in that liability of about $4.5 million. If I can, I'd like us to turn to page 35, where we'll see the second balance sheet. So page 35 is your governmental funds balance sheet. The difference between page 35 and page 30 and 31 is there's no long-term assets and there's no long-term liabilities. This is the short-term financial view for the town of Danvers. And in my opinion, it has one of the most important figures in your financial statements. It's actually 3 numbers from the bottom. Actually, let me take a step back. You have 3 columns here. Your first one is your general fund, which is your general fund plus your stabilization fund. And then you have your non-major governmental funds, which is your special revenue funds, your capital project funds, your permanent trust funds, your expendable trust funds. They're all consolidated there and presented there. But for tonight, I want to focus our attention just on the general fund. So as I was saying, one of the more important figures in your financial statements is actually 3 numbers from the bottom under that general fund column, and it's your unassigned fund balance. And that has a balance of $15,697,000. It's actually about a $1.9 million increase from the prior year. Now, that increase is due to your positive budgetary results of operation, and they were at $7.6 million. So you beat the budget by about $7.6 million. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit here and explain that a bit further. So you increased your budget by about, or your unassigned fund balance by $7.6 million, but then you utilize some of that fund or what you would refer to as your free cash during your FY23 budgeting process. And during that FY23 budgeting process, the town used $2.9 million for your capital and your OPEB contributions. And then the town also used $2.25 million for your debt stabilization. So at the beginning of the year, your unassigned fund balance was about $13.7 million. It was increased 7.6 due to your favorable budgetary results of operation, and then it decreased because the town used some during your FY23 budgeting process. And the reason I say that this is one of the more important figures in your financial statements, it's actually the starting point for your free cash calculation. Additionally, the town does have a policy to maintain an unassigned fund balance between 8 and 12% of the town's operating expenditures. And as of June 30, 2022, that ratio was at 14.3%. So the town of Danvers exceeded your own policy. It was at, the policy is between 8 and 12%. The town's at 14.3%. Additionally, the Government Finance Officers Association recommends this figure at 16.7%. And so you're a little bit below where the GFOA recommends, but you do exceed your own policy. So again, this is a good financial position for the town of Danvers and will be viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements. If we could jump to page 98, and that's where we're going to talk about your budgetary results of operation for your general fund. So on page 98, you see that there are 4 columns. You have your original budget, your final budget, your actual amount, which is the actual revenues that came in. And then that far right column is your favorable or unfavorable variance when comparing the final budget to your actual revenues. And if you will, I want to focus our attention on that far right column, which is your favorable or unfavorable variance when comparing the final budget to your actual revenues. And that very last number on the far right-hand page, you can see that revenues came in greater than what the town anticipated by $3,286,000. So that can be viewed as, on the revenue side of the budget, that's what the town beat the budget by. So revenues came in greater than what was anticipated by about $3.3 million. Now, the largest chunk of that, if we go back up to the top and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line items down under your penalties, interest, and other taxes, a big chunk of that sits there. You can see that your hotels and meals tax revenues came in greater than what was anticipated by about $582,000. And then your meals tax came in greater than about $331,000, greater than what was anticipated. Now, this was due to, during the budgeting process, the town conservatively budgeted these based upon the impacts of COVID-19 in both 2020 and 2021. Those revenues had come down for the actual due to the impacts of COVID-19, so they were budgeted a bit more conservatively. But as we're coming out of the pandemic, those actual revenues came in comparative to what those figures were pre-COVID-19. So that's why you see those favorable budgetary results of operation on the revenue side of the equation. If we could turn the page to page 99, you'll see that this is page 99 and page 98 are it's the expenditure side of this budgetary versus actual. So again, you can see that you have your original budget, your final budget, the actual expenditures, what was encumbered at year end, and then that final column, which is where I want to pay our attention, which is the favorable or unfavorable variance when comparing the budget to the actual. If we could actually turn the page to page 100, it's a continuation of page 99.
Do you mind, can I just ask a quick question? Original budget, final budget, why the difference? So I was looking back on page 98, down near the bottom, where our operating budget, our original budget was $448,000, and our final budget was $1 million plus. What is the difference between original and final budget?
It's would be votes to use free cash in that
Okay,
situation.
all
So you subsequent to June 30, 2020, or excuse me, or July 1st of 2021, which is the start of the fiscal year, the town voted to use some of their free cash for that FY22 budgeting process.
Okay.
So that's why you see that difference between the original and final. Other times, Mr. Trask, what you'll see is transfers of budget line items between line items. That's not uncommon as well. But I don't believe that took place here on the expenditure side of the equation. I believe in the town of Danvers, whatever the original budget is, ultimately it does equal the final budget.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. So on page 100, the very last number on that far right column, which is your favorable, unfavorable variance, you'll see that expenditures came in less than what was anticipated by $4,368,000. Again, this will be viewed favorably by users of the financial statements. It's what the town of Danvers can consider. We beat the expenditure side of the budget by about $4.4 million. Now, if you go up maybe about halfway up the page, you'll see that the largest chunk of this is all related to your employee benefits. Now, your employee benefits and insurance had a favorable variance of $2 million. Now, this was due to the town's insurance provider giving a 1-month premium holiday, in which the town and the town's employees did not have to pay for any health insurance expenditures for 1 month. We have seen this in other communities. It is not something that is common. It's not something that the town should anticipate happening year over year. This is probably a one-time,
Take it while you can.
exactly, type situation. So the town benefited, from that premium holiday. So that's why you see that really big favorable variance on your expenditure side of the equation. It is due primarily to that health insurance premium or health insurance holiday premium that was given for 1 month.
So are you suggesting that I'm trying to read the line, because I see that we had a budget of roughly $13.5 million, save 2, that's more than 1 month. That's more than 1 month's, appears to be more than 1 month's premium. You would think that if there's roughly 13 or 14, you'd get $1 million back, maybe a little more than $1 million. This appears to be more than 1/12 of savings.
Rodney's gonna, there's more in that line than just the health insurance, and Rodney can speak to
Okay.
some of the other items there.
So yeah, I'd say roughly between 1.2, 1.4 would be the actual premium holiday. And then in general, we'd have a surplus. Just again, we budget to ensure all our employees, whether they're hired or vacancies. Again, if we have vacancies or outages, that naturally creates a surplus in both salary, wages, and in the benefits budget.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
And that concludes everything I wanted to bring to your attention here tonight. So again, I think the takeaway should be that the town is in a good financial position. You have a good unassigned fund balance. And I mentioned before that the town doesn't have a management letter. When we come in to do the audit, we prove out the numbers in the financial statements, and above and beyond that, we also look at the town's internal controls. And if we saw an area where internal controls could be improved, we would recommend that in a formal management letter. There is no management letter, which means that the town is doing a fantastic job of not only implementing internal controls, but making sure that they're operating effectively. The town has not received one in a couple of years anyways, and only about 10% of Melanson, or now Markham clients, don't receive a management letter. So not having a management letter really speaks to the work that Heather, Rodney, and Steve, and all the folks here in the town do to make sure that the internal controls are operating effectively.
Okay,
Questions, Mr. Chair?
Gardner?
I don't have any questions. Seen this many times. Appreciate the fact that we aren't getting the management letter. Because I'm sure there's always opportunities for improvement. So, it's not to say if you get one, it was a bad thing. It was just there was something we could tighten up. I do appreciate the report. My favorite part is the statistical section. I take that out of the book every year and keep it with my select board member packet, because it really is a great snapshot of the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen?
I think it's great, a lot of reading material. I like to go through it with a fine comb still, since we just got the packet, but I think it's good. I like the AAA, rating still. That proves that Danvers is strong, and we want to continue that. But I might have questions later at another point in time. I'll talk to Rodney.
Thank you. Matt?
Yes, the statistical section was just mentioned, and that's a sort of a 10-year look back. Investors know that past performance isn't a guarantee of future results. So is there a way to kind of use the past 10 years to kind of guide us for the next several years, or is that sort of not really, is that sort of frowned on?
In what regards, budgeting or from?
Yeah, just budgeting or just anticipating. Like, for example, we're in a kind of a recessionary period now with inflation growing. So wondering if we can kind of use the previous metrics to kind of help us guide how to kind of budget for, the next 5 years, say. Is that something that's frowned upon, or is that a legitimate kind of strategy?
I can speak, and Rodney can maybe speak to this a bit further, but the town does look at prior years, and that's how they build their budget. That's how most communities do it in the Commonwealth. I wouldn't say that that's frowned upon, but as an auditor, I do need to make sure that I'm maintaining my independence, so I would be hesitant to tell you how to do your budgeting process or a methodology for your budgeting process. But if Rodney wants to speak to the town's budgeting process.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, in general, we obviously look at the previous trends. If you look in the budget book itself, the department detail always shows 2 or 3 years worth of the most recent past, as well as the current year, and then the projected budget. And then particularly as we saw with the pandemic, obviously it's uncharted territory, but the first thing that the manager and I did was look back to the housing market crash of 2008, because that was the last time you saw a dip like that. So both in general trend, we like to look at historical analysis, and also for those big life-changing moments in time, let's look at the most recent that we can try to compare to get some type of semblance on how to move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thank you for that information. And just for the report in general, it's useful information for town meeting members when they, in May, when they vote on the new budget, and also for just taxpayers in general, the residents of Danvers, that they can understand where the money's going and that the town is well-run. We often see in social media that we're kind of, we're spending haphazardly, and so this justifies those of us who say that we're a well-run organization. So this is kind of a confirmation of that. But for the report itself, it's a lot of numbers, so people may not be able, unless they speak with you or Rodney's team, they may not understand what some of these numbers represent. I know some of these types of reports I've seen in the past have dashboards, kind of graphical descriptions through bar charts or pie charts. Is that something that you might consider adding in the future, sort of as an appendix, perhaps, just not for all the information, but just for the key points that you mentioned?
Sure. So just so you're aware, the financial statements are the town's financial statements. I only contribute 3 pages to this report, which is the independent auditor's report. Everything else is the town's responsibility. Adding in those types of charts, other communities certainly do that. And if the town would like to add those in, I'd be more than happy to give them a hand with that. In adding those into whether it's the transmittal letter or the management's discussion and analysis to show some of that historic trends on a more visual perspective, I think that would be, a great idea and something that other communities certainly do.
Yeah, because for the layman who doesn't have an accounting or financial background, this, there's a lot of information here, but you kind of have to distill it or kind of, crawl through it to kind of understand what's happening. Especially for the KPIs for the key performance indicators. Those are the highlights. You touched on quite a few of them. That's something I think that residents could find useful, and not kind of, this is something you may want to look at like when you're trying to fall asleep, I think, at night. But thanks again for working with us and being able to kind of consolidate all this information into a useful product. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
David?
Thank you, Dan. I think the quality of the accountant's report shows the quality of the administration and management in Danvers, which is superb, certainly by this criteria and everything that I noticed. And to Heather and Rodney and Steve for working to put this kind of a document together. Wow, what a lot of work. I also want to note that the assessed value of taxable property in Danvers is now over $6 billion. And so that's a lot of responsibility for the administration to manage. And so I'm very proud to say that I think we do it very, very well. I do nothing, but the management of our town is doing a great job, and as shows in this accounting statement. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past, we've had financial summits and a lot of graphs, and some of this information would have been in those graphs?
Correct. We do the annual financial summit. I think right now our projected, maybe a tweaked version of that would be in early March.
So, Matt, to your point, we do get that presentation at that point, and it's helpful because it brings it out and makes it easy to see without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, that's it. No votes needed on this. Thank you very much for coming out and spending some time with us, Zach, and appreciate the information you gave us.
You're very welcome. Is it okay if I make a quick statement, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to thank everybody involved in this process. I think some of you have alluded to this. This is a pretty dense document. It's 145 pages that doesn't just come together with a snap of a finger. We've been here in early July doing preliminary work. We come back in October, and then we continue to work with town in November and early December to make sure that this is getting completed and done before the December 31st deadline, so the town can submit this for an annual review. This is not a small process. You are doing an ACFR, so I just want to thank everybody involved in that process. The town was very well prepared and very easy to work with during this process. I just want to thank everybody involved in the process.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to financial folks for your work. Thank you very much. Have a good night, Zach. Mr. Bradstreet? Just a question for Zach, or can he go?
For him and the town. I know it's a, what do you call it, euphemism. Could we use unencumbered, not free cash, because nothing is free? When you mention free cash in your paperwork, it makes people think there's free cash. Nothing is free. Could you call it unencumbered, please?
Unfortunately, I cannot. I have to go by the letter. Well, I know you're making a joke, but to be very serious, I can't.
And Bill, when Markham does audits in the other 49 states, it's not called free cash.
That's a specific term for the Commonwealth.
So
Then something is wrong.
Well,
Thank
we're doing
you.
it, the only ones doing it right.
Ah, the exception. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
thank you, Zach.
Town manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking of free cash, you received emails today from the Commonwealth that the free cash for the year has been certified. Not coincidentally, the increase this year is roughly equal to the increase that Zach was referencing in the benefits budget in terms of the premium holiday from Maya. So when we learned of the premium holiday last year, the budget process was already well underway. We budgeted the full year. And those savings from that 12th month flowed straight into free cash, and it also didn't create a cliff for us in the budget going into this year. So
So Steve, where's the ARPA funds? Are they in the free cash?
they're not part of the free cash, I don't believe.
No. It's
Those
in the
are a
general
separate-
fund
those are-
someplace?
Those, as federal dollars, I believe those would be tracked separately from, yeah.
What is that?
It's a special revenue fund.
At the microphone.
Thank you, Remy.
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, the ARPA funds are in a special revenue fund segregated for use on those ARPA purposes as presented to the board back in September 2021.
Did we use them in the water and sewer already?
We had a couple water and sewer projects. We have some COVID mitigation measures that we used them for earlier. We have some paving, playground work. Again, the plan that we presented in September is still the plan in place right now.
So how much is left?
I'd say roughly half, but again, it's, yeah.
Okay, so it was, what, 8-something million?
Yeah, we're on target to spend it within the time allotted by
Right,
the federal government.
You don't want any clawback?
No.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
And so that certainly, that certification will be helpful and beneficial as we go into the budget process. You did receive the rough calendar, you received the schedule for March 18th, which is our Saturday budget workshop. We've already had a number of meetings with the schools. I've been talking to the MMA and the executive committee there about expectations from the state. We're likely to get a later state aid number than we're accustomed to this year because of the transition in the governor's office. Typically, the budget process the year after an election, when there's a change in office, is a little bit delayed, so we'll be getting our aid numbers a little bit later than we're used to. The preliminary revenue projections are very conservative. The Commonwealth is projecting 1.6% revenue increase, which is much lower than what we've seen in recent years, but I think they're bracing for a slowdown in terms of revenue year over year. And the drivers that we're going to talk about in this year will be no surprise to anybody. We've started talking about special education. Danvers, like a lot of communities this year, are experiencing really a tidal wave in terms of special education costs being driven both by increased numbers of students requiring out-of-district services, but also the cost of those services. It's really a double whammy. And the state's funding mechanism to reimburse towns and cities for that, which works well during normal times, is being stress tested right now because we're seeing year over year increases. So that's a major problem that we've been working with the schools, and they'll be discussing with the school committee at the beginning of their budget process. We're expecting close to $500,000 increase again from Essex Tech this year. They're presenting their budget Thursday, and it appears that they're requesting an 8% budget increase year over year, and we don't believe there's been an increase in the student body. So that's something that will, we're conservatively assuming somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 increase. We've been averaging close to 15% increase from the tech for going on 5 or 6 years now. So with $3 million in budget capacity over the past half decade has been transferred to Essex Tech. Trash, we've talked about trash. So the collection, we're going to be soliciting the proposals imminently in terms of trash collection to try to find out what that is going to look like next year and what if any changes in service may look like to try to soften the impact of that. We're coming off 3 very good years on our health renewals, due in large part to the process that the unions engaged in with management 4 or 5 years ago to redesign the plan, go back to Maya. But what was reported at the annual meeting is that the renewals this year are ranging anywhere from 1% to 10%, but the average is about 5%. And that's being driven by the cost of RX, medical services. Those are, inflation is hitting those as well. And I think those are the highlights. So I joke with Rodney, when we start the budget process in the fall, he tells the departments it's going to be a tough budget year every single year. We're truly experiencing a tough budget year. I want people to make sure they listen and believe him, that this is not the boy who cried wolf. We have a lot of budgetary headwinds today, this year. I spoke earlier today with a state delegation, particularly about the special ed. That's something that Andover is seeing a spike. My colleague in Newton and Lexington are talking about spikes. The smaller towns on the North Shore are grappling with really escalating special ed costs, and I think the MMA and a lot of towns and cities are calling on the state. It's their funding system, and we need help. The system works well during normal times, but it's becoming very clear that coming out of COVID is anything but. So should be an action-packed day on the 18th, and as the finance director alluded to, we'd like to do some preliminary, sort of an abridged version of the financial summit with the board, probably at the first meeting in March, as sort of a table setting for the budget process. And the only other thing I wanted to report on tonight, as we speak, there are interviews being conducted by the Airport Commission. The mayor invited Aaron Henry and I to participate in this screening committee for that important position. We interviewed 20 people applied for the position, and across 2 afternoons last week, we interviewed. The screening committee selected 8 candidates to meet with and interview, and we recommended 4 of those candidates to move forward to meet with the full commission, which is what's happening now. 3 of the candidates have deep airport experience, including management experience. One brings a slightly different background, but is a local from the region. So there are a number of quality candidates in the mix, and hopefully the Airport Commission will be able to identify and secure their top candidate. One of the things that was clear throughout the interview process and in talking to the commissioners who were on that is that the concerns that were raised in this room have been raised by our members are also priorities for the commission. They want to have a manager who is responsive to the concerns. We talk a lot about, people appreciate a hard no more than a soft maybe. So somebody who understands the role, the responsibility, where the authority starts and stops, so they can be clear with the residents, supportive of the residents, and work with the residents. So I left my part in the process feeling optimistic that that is a priority of the commission, and because it's a priority of the commission, it will become a priority of the manager who they hire. And I think that's it. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you. Questions for the manager? Dave, you also?
Thank you.
Matt?
Can you just expand on the candidates' interviews for the airport, the manager of the airport? Is that something, is that a public process, or is that in like closed meetings?
I believe the interviews tonight are public. The screening process, similar to with a town manager or a superintendent search, is the preliminary work is not public because most of the candidates don't move forward. So
Right.
But the finalists are all, that's public, and the interviews will be public.
Okay, and will that be published? Especially for residents that live near the airport, they may want to attend to see.
I believe it was published, and it was published by the city of Beverly.
I see, okay.
So it's through there.
That's good, because we, I think, not at the last meeting, but the meeting before that, we had a large turnout of people that were concerned about who the new manager will be and whether or not they'll be kind of, be engaged with not just with the city of Beverly, but also with the citizens of Danvers, and kind of take their concerns to heart.
Right.
Because the past manager kind of didn't really do that, and it was kind of disconcerting to people. So, all right, that's good. Thank
Have
you.
any questions for the manager? Maureen?
I'm with Matt, too. I mean, I think having the new manager come in, seeing the neighbors, the concerns of the residents, I think it's clear that a message has been sent. Having our representatives here, too, I think helped. Where are we at with snow budget cost? And, we haven't had much. there's... Okay.
Say we just got a report from Rob Dever the other day for events 7 and 8, and I knew Rodney would have that right off the top of his head.
Yes, I think the latest update from Public Works was that we're 58% expended through the snow and ice budget at this point.
Okay, good. And then
All that free cash.
with the health insurance, you said the plans, are they looking, is the town looking into
No,
any different
we went through
plans?
a pretty, it was about a 24-month process working with the unions, probably 4 years ago now. Feels like it was a month ago.
Yeah.
And we went back to Maya. We had been with Tufts for a number of years. We were one of the original members of the Mass Interlocal Insurance Association. We went to Tufts in 2011 because we had, at that time, Maya was not able to meet certain needs in terms of how to handle subsets of the retired population in terms of accessing benefits and driving down cost. A number of communities like Danvers left, and Maya, in response to that, built out a division within Maya to do that, so a number of communities went back. So when we went back to Maya around 2018 or 19, we overhauled the plan at that time and returned to Maya. So what we did is we offered a benchmark plan, which is a traditional copay plan, which is similar to what the state offers. And we introduced alongside of that a deductible plan, which is $2,000, $4,000 deductible for families, which is it's just high enough that it triggers the ability to fund an HSA. The IRS has rules about a minimum deductible in order to qualify for an HSA. So it's important to us to be able to offer an HSA to employees. And when we rolled that out, we had close to 50% participation, which was unheard of in terms of Maya's feedback. So we took 2 years to work through it and talk through it. But that is not something that we're looking at right now, just because it is so disruptive and so it's a long timeline. When I say that the ranges are probably 1 to 10% for Maya, our expectation is that we will be at or below the average because of the work that we've invested in overhauling our plan. I know colleagues who are now starting the process that we completed 4 years ago, so they're now facing the same challenges that we were, and they're also making the move. I think deductible plans are going to be pretty much the standard at some point, just like they are in the private sector.
And then the trash is really big. Dave Lehman's going to keep us really updated on what's happening with the trash.
When we have,
solicitations and who, where, and that's going to be big.
It will be, and so what we're doing right now is working to get we have the RFP prepared. We need to get it out and start. Once we have some responses come in, then we'll be able to share what that looks like.
Good.
What we're planning.
And can you just give us an update on, the Square project? How, what's happening? We want, in the Square.
Yep. So the everybody who's driven through town lately has seen the demolition is not only well underway, but wrapping up in terms of taking down the buildings. I suspect we've asked the developer as of last week to prepare some project signage that can be put up along the fencing there. But the assumption is that the ground we'll see a break ground come spring. And when it was preliminarily presented, I believe it was an 18 to 24 month build out was the anticipated timeline, starting with the heart of the project, which is the building that will be oriented toward Hobart and Maple, with restaurant and commercial on the first floor, and then residential on the upper floors with the parking behind, which is something that the new zoning contemplated, was trying to move away from the pattern where you have the street and then the parking lot and then the use at the very back of the property. We're trying to bring uses forward and put the cars behind so that it's more pedestrian and retail oriented. So that's the first phase. The last phase of the project will be, I think, from our perspective, probably the most exciting piece, which is the rehabilitation of the red and yellow freight house, which will house a small business and also public restrooms right along the rail trail, which a lot of people are excited about. And as part of that, they're going to be putting in tiered decking, which will essentially become like community space, along with some grass where it's currently just gravel parking lot, and that'll be right adjacent to the rail trail, which will create a really nice waypoint, especially considering that the rail trail extension, which is a block away, is now well underway. Those who've had a chance to walk across the new bridge that spans Beaver Brook, it's beautiful.
Beautiful,
And the state is starting to feel the pressure because we're moving so quickly on our phases, so they're working on designing their phases as well.
Good. And the Danvers Hardware building update?
No update there.
No, nothing yet?
Yeah, our understanding was that the buyer from a year ago was planning to move forward, and then as the inflation started to tick up, it paused things. So no update there. It was a private transaction, and we had heard preliminarily some thoughts in terms of what the project was going to be, but the zoning really asks for all around there is the commercial presence on the first floor with housing above.
So another hardware store maybe? No, don't know.
Don't know. It'd be nice. I think that would be ideal.
That'd be ideal. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Correspondence, new business, et cetera. Maureen?
Let's see. A lot of reading to do. Thank you, Rodney and Steve. Let's see, I attended Danvers Housing Authority meeting where they had a developer come in for the Danvers Home for the Deaf. And There's going to be some renovations going on there. Cindy Dunn and her staff continue to keep our housing people safe, which is great. And the rail trail, I have had the pleasure, the rail trail does, Matt is involved with that too, that they do a great job. I did walk the rail trail day along that beautiful bridge. And that's nice to see that going, and nice to see some state funding for that too. But that's about it.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Dan. A couple of things I mentioned while the chief was here after the murder of Mr. Nichols down in Tennessee. Several police chiefs in the area, including Chief Lovell, issued powerful statements of solidarity with the victims and condemnation of the police behavior. I thought it was very important and very beautifully done. Second thing is our annual town report. Once again, a most beautiful job. I don't know who's responsible for putting this together every year, but it really is. It's a beautiful piece of work.
That'll be Ann Freitas,
Ann,
with help from Sharon Clement and others in the
Yeah.
Public Works Department. But Ann is really the, she's the heart and soul of that document, which is an award-winning document, I will add. It won an award at the MMA for Best Annual Report a couple years ago.
I think that.
Hope you're watching it.
As to the new town website, the first day it was up, I went right on. And I think, Bill, you spoke this evening about the difficulties people at my age and your age have, excuse me, not. All right. I think it's really, really so improved and so user-friendly, and notwithstanding, a lot of people my age are still afraid of computers, don't know how to turn them on, and don't understand that they run on electricity, mostly, and that they don't really know how to enter a, what do you call it, a site or a website. And I thought that it might be helpful if at the senior center, once a week, there was a show and tell little workshop. At our select board meetings, I don't think it would take a lot of time to have a 2 or 3 minute carefully planned show and tell to show people, I want to know when my rubbish is going to get picked up, and here's what I do. So I think so far it looks just great. I am able to navigate it, so I think that anybody can learn quite quickly. The next thing I wanted to just mention is that the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee will be meeting this Thursday in this room at 7 o'clock. I checked the agenda, and there's no particularly exciting thing on, but everything that that committee does is a work of great commitment by people who are working for a better life and an inclusionary community that we are striving toward. And all, of course, are welcome. It's a public meeting. The next thing is the senior center. I don't know who mentioned the senior center, the February booklet of the senior center. Number one, all of the information in here is available online. Also, the senior center would be thrilled to send a copy in the mail to anybody who wants it. And I just want people to know, especially older people who are maybe reluctant to reach out and get involved in things, that there's great stuff going on down there. If you need help with your income tax preparation, there are trained people who will help. Thursday, this coming Thursday, there will be a $2 meal down there, which is pasta, broccoli, Caesar salad, garlic rolls, tiramisu, and every day of the, every weekday of the month, there is a meal that goes on down there, and the food is terrific. In this booklet, there are other program components that are open to all people, and so don't be afraid to take advantage of them. Also, I just wanted to mention that at the Danvers YMCA, I realize it is not a town agency, but it's one that I'm quite involved in. because Monday through Friday at 9:15, I am in the swimming pool with a bunch of my girlfriends. We are all between 70 and 90. We don't have problems with body image, and everybody can sign up and come. It is a terrific exercise, but the rest of the place, there is senior exercises, there is a Parkinson's workshop, there are other kinds of things, so please, there's no reason for anybody to stay home and feel isolated. And I think that was, oh yeah, the only other thing is sooner or later, as we get into more concerns about rubbish removal and pickup, you know, plastic bags. I use plastic bags every day in my house to put the trash in and the recycling. Then I put the plastic bag into my big barrel. And so I don't know what the answer to this is, except eventually I hope that the industry will produce biodegradable bags that can last 2 or 3 months so that the trash can be contained. But it's a, I know, Dan, you were particularly concerned about the abuse of plastic products, and that's just something that concerns me. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. Matt?
Just a couple items. So just start with the website. So it definitely an improvement on the look and feel or the user experience. I'm not sure that requiring directions on how to use the website. It should be, the objective is to create a website that's kind of intuitive, that you don't need to need a workshop, but maybe that's a good idea for people that are not computer savvy, or even some type of set of instructions or a guide, a user guide. That might be a good something that people can click on to kind of get the rudimentary lay of the land, so to speak, sort of like the site map of the site. But definitely should be considered always dynamic. Websites are dynamic, right, in the sense that they're works in progress. And so perhaps having a way for users to submit suggestions or concerns about how the site feels to them would be a useful way to collect information that could be used for improvement. I personally find the search function to be an improvement, but there's still an issue trying to find historical information such as previous agendas or minutes for the various boards and committees. And part of that is because of the naming convention of files. There isn't really a standard, I think, for the town on how files should be named. So you have everyone kind of coming up with their own solution. So you might have something that just says, the file might just say agenda. And so searching on for those types of documents is a real challenge. But I think overall it's an improvement, and kudos to Jen and her team for kind of working with the vendor to kind of get that rolled out. It's good to see. Comment on the rail trail, the DPW really spent a considerable effort on the trail just north of Wenham Street. Users know that that is a section between Wenham Street and what they call the cut, where this vertical walls, stone rock walls. That area is kind of a low point, and it regularly floods out. And so DPW went in there and installed at least, I think, about a half a dozen, I think, 6-inch piping underneath the trail to kind of get the water flowing. They removed some of the trees and debris along the sides, and then they elevated the trail itself. So a big improvement, and thank you to the town and to the DPW for the manpower that it took to kind of correct that, because it's been an issue for many years. Even when the rails were there, that would flood out. I also received letters from residents of Essex Tech. There were several gentlemen here earlier this evening under new business who explained the situation there with student parking from Essex Tech. And I think the board had kind of discussed that briefly a month or two ago. I think it's instituting some type of resident permit parking is definitely the way to go. If you look at the city of Salem, they have a program that's quite robust, and they use it around the Salem State area and also near the Salem Depot for people that don't necessarily live in the area but park in front of residents for the entire day. So I don't think it's really appropriate for the college, for Essex Tech to manage that. I think the town should kind of do a survey. I first identify the streets in play, probably everything west of Route 1 out to the Middleton line in the 62 corridor, and then just kind of perhaps a survey with the residents just to ensure.
Matt, if I may just interject, a survey was sent to all the residents of the streets surrounding Essex Tech where the parking's going on. They're accumulating that information, the Traffic Advisory Committee, and coming up with some thoughts. As I mentioned earlier, there's a Zoom meeting Friday.
Yep, okay.
It is an issue, and it is a problem.
So there'll be, initially, the rollout of a permitting program, there will require some police involvement initially, but I think once the word gets out there, it will just be a matter of just a week or two before people get the message and know that they need to pay the dollar or whatever it is, which seems.
It's $150 a year for a non-refundable parking permit at the Tech. I don't know where the $1 a day came from.
Oh, okay. All right, but still, the impact to the residents is just, and especially, it seemed like a public safety issue almost, where they're parking on both sides with a single lane, so. All right, well, we'll look forward to hearing more about that. And then just one last thing, I had mentioned this in the past, dugouts at the Memorial Field at Plains Park, corner of Bayview Avenue, and I forget the other street, but the work is commencing now, and they have concrete pads down. So again, large wooden dugouts, 10 feet high, three-sided walls with shingles. Not really appropriate for open space area, I don't think. And now my concern is that dugouts, this is sort of a precedent, that dugouts will be similar dugouts will be created for all fields, not just at Plains Park, but throughout town. And it's really an unnecessary thing. When I played Little League, we didn't even have chain link fences in front of the benches, and we used to get hit by foul balls, and it made us tough, and we liked it like that. So I'm just concerned that no more dugouts like of these types be constructed. That's all I have. Thank you.
Gardner?
Thank you. Kudos to the new website. I've already provided some feedback. I like the layout and the search capabilities. I found the minutes and agendas, if you go to each board, there's a section where you can pull those up. I'm on the River Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust Committee, and I've asked them to catch up on their publications and minutes and agendas. There are meetings next week for both those, public meetings for both of those organizations. And as we all did, received emails about the Essex Tech parking situation. And the chairman and I were able to attend a ribbon cutting at Area, the new grocery store up at the Liberty Tree Mall, and it was very nice, well attended, really well attended. Lines out the door, over 100 people waiting in line. So it was good to welcome a new business into the community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one point of information for the town manager. Maple Square project, I was told the gates would be kept closed. I found on Maple Street on Sunday afternoon. I don't know if it's the gate, the fence, whatever was ajar and wide open.
It was open.
Yep.
That's thank goodness it was a Sunday, but that's an invitation to kids to go explore.
Friday afternoon, the wind blew some of the fencing down, and we were on the phone with them
Okay.
to get it taken care of, so.
Yeah,
it'll
I
be-
almost
yeah.
stopped the car to go look
Yeah.
around myself, but I had my wife with me, so I didn't.
I would not advise you do that.
Please remember the vet when you see a veteran, and if there's no other business become before the board, the meeting is adjourned. Good night, Danvers.